Hello, welcome to another episode of Decentralounge. This is season 2, and it's brought to you by GlobalStake, which is your institutional, truly decentralized, and we're self-owned and managed, and SOC 2 Type 2 compliant bare metal staking service provider. But today, we're very excited to have a wonderful guest on the show, Mark Fidelman, who is the co-founder of SmartBlocks, which is an exchange dedicated to helping businesses unlock the potential of their assets through end-to-end solutions for security tokens, fractionalization of large assets, or decentralized finance or DeFi. Mark is a pioneering force in the tokenization of real assets. So with over 2 decades of experience in technology sales, as well as marketing and customer engagement, Mark has been a leading voice in the crypto community. He was recently also recognized by LinkedIn as a top influencer in this dynamic field. Whereas at SmartBlocks, he drives innovation in real estate and asset fractionalization, transforming traditional investment approaches through blockchain technology. So join us today as we dive into this area and have Mark kind of explain a little bit more about SmartBlocks and how he is changing the landscape. Mark, excited to have you on.
Thanks, Jordan. Really appreciate you being here with you guys. So, a little bit about my background. I have a sales and marketing background. I've been involved in 3 successful startups, two of them that haven't been successful, but those are where you learn the most. And so this being my 4th, this is by far the biggest opportunity I've ever been involved in. It's literally a multi-trillion-dollar market that's just starting. It's at the starting line.
Love it. Unmute myself here. So out of curiosity, can you kind of tell us what got you interested in blockchain and cryptocurrency over the last few years?
The last few or from the beginning?
From the beginning would be fantastic.
Wow. Okay. Well, I absolutely hated Bitcoin. I thought it was a scam. And probably some of your people watching this probably still do, but it's not. It wasn't until Ethereum came out where I saw programmable platforms for money or for really anything else that's on an immutable ledger called the blockchain. And that to me was a game changer. Literally, you could program things to happen automatically, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet using macros. That's essentially what you could do on some of these blockchains. And once I saw that, I'm like, okay, I get it now. I understand what's going to happen, what the future of finance is, what the future is in general. It won't replace databases, but it'll be another form of database that has a lot more trust than private databases do now.
Interesting. So then leading up through the creation of SmartBlocks, can you kind of give everyone a primer of what SmartBlocks is and then what you guys are focusing on doing in regards to real estate?
So SmartBlocks, think of it as like the Coinbase for real estate, where you go and you look for properties that you want to invest in. These are fractionalized, what we call tokenized. And so these properties allow you to buy in for as little as $50. And these are properties, commercial, industrial, multifamily, residential, that you'd never get involved or could never get involved in all around the world. So that's what the value SmartBlocks brings, is giving you investment opportunities that's direct. It's not like a REIT where it's mixed in with everything else. You don't have any direct ownership in property. With this, you do. And there's many advantages to have direct ownership of property, which we can get into in a little while.
Just a quick follow-up on that, Mark. Like, is it truly for anyone? Because I know a lot of times with many other blockchain products, you're geo-fenced, if you will, where people aren't allowed to access particular investments. Would that apply to even, say, typical Americans? They could get into SmartBlocks and then have that opportunity to invest?
Yeah, only accredited investors in the U.S. If you're hearing this. Outside the U.S., it could be non-accredited or accredited. The big difference between us and crypto is that crypto doesn't do a know your customer anti-money laundering check. We do that check to make sure we know who you are, because if you're on the cap table of a real estate project, we need to know, just like in the stock market, we need to know who's investing and who's not. And so that's the biggest difference between crypto and tokenization, which is security tokens essentially. But the advantage is you can't be hacked. These are things that can't be hacked, because if somebody takes your tokens or decides that they're going to trick you out of your tokens, what you do is you just go to the developer or the real estate owner and you say, hey, these have been hacked or stolen, cancel them or reissue them. It literally takes 30 seconds.
What are some of the biggest challenges you guys are facing when it comes to tokenizing physical assets like real estate?
The biggest challenge is educating real estate people on what this huge change is, because it's still the same underlying asset, but now instead of issuing paper shares, you're issuing digital shares, and that opens up a whole different world, right? You've got borrowing and lending now. You could stake the tokens, you can collateralize the tokens and borrow from them. You could trade them. You've just created this big liquid market for real estate that's never existed prior to now.
When it comes to like the regulatory body, are there any current like big obstacles that you have to overcome in tokenizing real estate? Because I guess more specifically, when it comes to having like the deed of a property being housed at like your local county, how does all this work with tokenization?
We set things up in SPVs in the United States so that you're actually investing in a special purpose vehicle that owns, and sole purpose is to own that real estate and manage that real estate. That's it. There's no other function of the special purpose vehicle. And so when you invest in that, then you're not having to put 500 people on a title deed. You just, you're issuing shares to this SPV, and the SPV is the only thing on the title deed. So it's a lot easier. Now, in terms of regulation, we have to follow regulations, mostly exemptions, doing a Reg D or Reg S or Reg A or Reg CF. If your audience doesn't know that, it's totally understandable. These are different ways of being exempt from securities laws, which isn't truly an exemption. You have to follow certain rules of these exemptions in order to qualify for them, and we absolutely follow them to the letter of the law. In the U.S., outside the U.S., it's different.
I noticed on the website it says coming soon in 2024. So when does the actual exchange for qualified investors to actually interact directly on your website launch?
It's been soft launched for 2 weeks. If you go to smartblocks.xyz, it's up. We just haven't made a major announcement yet because we're onboarding properties as we speak, and we don't want to have onboard people and have them have a weird experience. We want them to be able to invest right away and to be able to profit from these investments.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the tokenization aspects? Like, I found this really fascinating. I was excited for you to be a guest, Mark. I live in Florida, and my understanding is one of the very first pieces of real estate that was sold in the United States through a tokenized asset was done via NFT in Gulfport. So we're already starting to see this. We see BlackRock with their big, tokenization fund. RWA is just in general a very hot narrative, but I feel like real estate in particular, you could unlock a lot of value by doing this fractionalization. Is it something that's more like an NFT that's fractionalized, or the shares just like a certain kind of token that get issued for each property? Like, how does the actual process work when inside the SPV, if you will?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it is a token. It's a property token, and it just represents 1-to-1 a share of that SPV. You could also issue NFTs. I think that's an added step that's not necessary at this point. I see maybe some value in the future, but with smart contracts, you can simulate NFT properties, but you do even more than just a standard NFT. Now, these NFTs will evolve. But we're not there yet, and we didn't want to complicate it even more with especially people in real estate. They're used to investing in real estate. Now they have to worry about how to sell and buy NFTs. But I know there are some companies that are doing that, and we wish them well, because if they find a successful model, we'll replicate them. But for now, it's just a digital share, just like money in your bank account is not really paper dollar. It's a digital representation of that dollar. And that's all we're doing with tokenization. But now we've, made the leap onto the blockchain, which presents a lot of opportunity globally that you don't get with, digital dollar and sitting in a bank account.
Just a quick follow-up. How about the types of properties? Like, is it just focused on, say, residential properties? Is it commercial properties where you could unleash a kind of revenue flow? Like maybe if it's something like a warehouse, for instance, and somebody actually owns the warehouse, but then rent is coming in. So very similar. You brought up REITs earlier. Could it be something like that where then some of that cash flow trickles down to the token holders of these properties?
Absolutely. Dividends is a big part of it, especially property that already exists and is cash flowing. I mean, those are the properties we want to attract most because it's paying an immediate cash flow. And some of the cash flow is pretty dang good for a secured asset. So absolutely. That is done and encouraged on the platform. And even if you're funding a development project, some people take out tokenized loans and are paying back a return on that loan until the development's ready. So anything's possible. You could be very creative. In fact, if you let's just say you put a hotel up on there, you could say, hey, for every 100 tokens you own of this hotel, you get a free night. I mean, that's just one thing. The sky's the limit with blockchain because of smart contracts.
Out of curiosity, I'm assuming you guys are doing everything on the Ethereum blockchain, or have you looked at alternatives? So like Solana, or there's a lot of banks right now that are trying to use the Canton network. So just curious how you guys go about deciding or adding additional cryptocurrencies or blockchains that people can utilize to tokenize.
Yeah, I mean, we work on all those. I haven't heard of Centura yet, but it's not that difficult for us to go on that network. It's just a programming change that we'd have to make. Like we prefer Ethereum because it got built-in security token contracts like an ERC 1440 or 1400. Hedera seems to be an up-and-coming one. We have Polygon, Ravencoin. So a lot of the top ones that support kind of the security token standard, because we're liable if we don't run the AML KYC checks. So it's got to be able to support that and say, yep, I know who this person is. I know the wallet. So assuming that the blockchain can handle that, then we're good to go.
Wonderful. And you had mentioned that because everything's KYC'd and you can easily track who owns what asset, if anything's ever stolen, it's easy to just delete it and have it reissued. But independent from that, I'm curious, how are people actually holding these tokens? Or is it all self-custody via MetaMask, or do you guys have custodial partnerships, or how does that work?
Absolutely. It can any wallet really, but we can hook up with any wallet that can handle the ERC 1400 standard or 1440, or if you talk about Solana, you talk about some of these other ones that have security token standards. As long as the wallet themselves has been KYC'd and AML'd and they can handle those standards, then absolutely you can hold them. MetaMask is just the easiest one. I just noticed they got a Wells notice, which is interesting, but I think they'll beat it. But anything that can handle any wallet that can handle that's those standards. But again, you could do this all in fiat. It's not just limited to crypto. And I want to be clear about that. This is not really a crypto play. It's more of a security token play that's using the same tools as crypto, but acts and behaves a lot differently.
Makes sense. Basically just making the market far more efficient utilizing blockchain technology. And it seems like you're agnostic on whatever specific blockchain it is. Fantastic. So out of curiosity, so it launched soft 2 weeks ago, getting ready to do a major launch here soon. What's kind of like the vision for the next, I hate to say 5 years because that's such a big amount of time, but like, what's the vision for like the next 18 months per se of where you see this exchange going? And another way to ask this question would be like, what strategic partnerships are you guys maybe looking into doing? Because we've been seeing a lot of news lately of BlackRock looking to heavily tokenize real estate.
That's music to all of our ears because it's such a massive market that it's funny, Jordan and Ryan, when the big institutions get involved, TradFi, as we call it, gets involved in tokenization or crypto, everyone goes nuts, right? Look what happened with BlackRock and these Bitcoin ETFs. So the same thing is happening with tokenization. BlackRock is getting into it. It was 3x oversubscribed when they announced it just a couple of weeks ago. And then Larry Fink comes out and says, look, folks, the future of finance is tokenization. We couldn't agree more. It's way more efficient, way more cost effective, and it's global in nature from day one. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think what we're looking for is for some of these institutions to get involved at a bigger level, and then that'll legitimize more of what we're doing. So we have to do less explaining and less showing, and just say, look, BlackRock has already validated this happens, this works. I think Greystone's going to be next. And this is a real deal. And they're not going to put their $1 trillion portfolio at risk for something they didn't study over and over and over again.
Completely agree. Curious your thoughts on the aspect of these large institutional players creating walled gardens. So they could very easily do a fork of Ethereum on their own, build it all in-house so that it's all private and it can't be publicly audited, which seems to be the path that the company Digital Asset is going down with their project Canton. But from your perspective, do you think that most of this is going to stay on public ledgers that are easily identifiable and verifiable, or will centralization come back into play and create these walled gardens?
I think the governments are going to demand it, because remember, the ecosystem is not just developer investor. The ecosystem is going to be in the future. Everything's connected. Like, you'll be able to see rent payments, you'll be able to see tax payments to government. All of that will be handled on platforms like ours. You're going to see governments require it, because now they're like, wow, we don't have to wait to get paid. We're part of the process of getting paid. And once governments understand that reality, they're going to force all of this to be public, and they're going to force it to have their involvement. That's what I see regulation going. But that's good for all of us. Honestly, everything becomes more efficient, more effective. The one thing we have to be careful of is we don't want government controlling it. And it's just, so I'm anti-CDBC, because I do not trust our government not to limit your ability and my ability to our own funds. And therefore, if the government tries to take it over, people will just move to a different chain. I don't see that happening. Business and consumers, they're not going to want government control of this whole thing. Look what they've done with the money supply. We could talk about that all day. They're going to want something that's not controlled by any government, that's controlled by community, or not controlled at all, totally decentralized. Maybe it's controlled by some AI, AI assisted. I'd still want humans to kind of make some decisions around it, but not government. So that's where I stand with that.
Makes sense. So then SmartBlocks right now is carving its niche specifically in real estate tokenization. But are there any other assets that you guys are looking to basically add as additional products going forward?
We can add it pretty easily. It's already built for it. But what I find, and I've had a lot of failures in my career, is you got to niche out first, become the master of one, and then you can add things like equity or derivatives. Or, you can tokenize literally anything of value, right? We'll probably never get into art. It's not our forte. But certainly equity, we're already doing real estate debt, but we could do general debt. But real estate, honestly, is a $280 trillion industry if you add up all the real estate globally. Now, we know we're not going to tokenize it all day one, but eventually it will all be tokenized. It's just too efficient and too effective. So we're looking at a $280 trillion market. That for me is, unless we find another niche or path that's more successful than real estate, then we'll be in real estate a long time.
What's it been like with other realtors? Obviously, this industry, where this is all going. We had a previous guest on who is a registered investment advisor, for instance, and he went and visited others in his area and asked them, what is your crypto strategy moving forward now that BlackRock's getting involved and so on and so forth? Have you noticed a similar kind of dynamic with just the individual realtors that you speak to, or maybe anybody else who's outside of the blockchain space? Do they see the vision that you're presenting and what SmartBlocks is building?
The beautiful thing is, Ryan, that BlackRock is doing a lot of talking. And when they talk, everyone listens, kind of like I can't remember, old Charles Schwab commercial. I can't remember. But when they talk, people listen. So they're all getting educated on this. They still don't understand it, but they know it's coming. So we're kind of at that stage where there's a lot of confusion, but also opportunity. And I look at it, and my competitors look at this as an opportunity to educate everybody into what this is and get them comfortable with it. The problem with the crypto industry is they made everything so complicated. And you see this in a lot of industries, that they want to complicate things just so they're part of this club, this niche club, which is kind of cool at first, right? But eventually, when you get mainstream people involved, there's a huge learning curve to understanding what all these things mean. And that's what we're in. We haven't crossed the chasm yet. If you're familiar with Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, but we're on the precipice of it, and we've got early adopters that are starting to adopt it. And I give it 2 years, and this will become a very viable option on anything related to real estate. And that includes realtors that are watching this, usually commercial realtors that are watching this now. some residential, multifamily. This is the direction that it's certainly going to go.
Fantastic. I'd say the last question that we have for you would be, are there any specific topics or something that's on your heart or on your mind that we did not cover today that you really want people to know about, either about you or the firm?
Okay. I know we covered a lot of this already, but look at where crypto was in 2000, I'd say 2016. That's where we are with tokenization. Now, I know a lot of you didn't get into crypto for the same reasons I didn't get into it initially, but as you know now, it's way more mainstream. That's where tokenization is. The difference between tokenization and crypto, tokenization is going to be far bigger than crypto will ever be, is that the security and the regulation, the safety protocols are already in place. Some say there's too much. Like our SEC hasn't updated the rules in 80 years, which is true. They haven't, which is crazy to me, the securities laws. But that's the case. But there's other countries like El Salvador and Dubai that have already updated it, and it's far easier to go through them than it is through the U.S. So I would say that for anyone watching this, this is going to happen. The regulation is going to change. It's going to be, once government understands it can make more money from it, they're going to be forcing this to happen. But that's good for all of us as long as they don't control the blockchain. And just be prepared for it. Get ready for it. Test it out. You can go to our platform. You can go to other platforms and just buy a couple $100 worth of real estate just to see what the experience is like. I think you'll be pretty happy that you did. And we talk about in our education how you can have a $20,000 a month passive income just by investing $1,000 a month in real estate. We show you how to do that. So for me, real estate's the safest, most effective, and best long-term investment that there is.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for your insights. For anybody that's listening that is a qualified investor, Mark, what's the best way they can reach out to you and the firm and basically get this education and actually start investing and interacting with your platform?
Yeah, go to smartblocks.xyz. You can sign up. Recognized properties are still be onboarded, so you're early, depending on when this comes out. It's going to get more and more populated, but we do go through a very thorough due diligence process to make sure T's are crossed, I's are dotted, so that we give people the reassurance that these are legitimate investments.
Awesome. For those of you that are listening, all those are going to be linked down below. Please go check it out. Reach out to Mark, follow him, and start utilizing the platform as soon as possible. Mark, loved having you on today. Appreciate your insights. Wildly fascinating what's happening in the world of real estate and tokenization, and excited to see where this goes. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. Great conversation.
Thank you all. We'll see you next time on Decentralounge.